America First policy, implementing an external revenue service, the ERS, to collect tariffs, duties, and other foreign trade related revenues. I think this is a good way for the American economy to grow because you're figuring out more ways to get money. So New York City recently passed this law demanding if you're crossing the lower part of Manhattan that you're paying an extra $9 just to get over on that other side. But for me as a New Jerseyan, since I don't live in New York, I get a discount at $6 every time I cross over. So you got to think about it. If I was commuting 5 days a week, that would have been a total of $12 per day on top of the original toll I'm paying, which is around $15 with my Easy Pass. So you got $12 plus 15. That's almost $30 a day just to go back and forth to work. That's $150 a week. That's $600 a month that they are getting from me every single month for me to go to work. It is an extra, if I'm just accounting for the New York fee, that is $60 per week. So that's $240 extra that I'll be paying, which essentially could be accounting for the cost of a monthly subway pass. But it's still quite a bit for some people. Some people don't feel it, they don't care. Plus, you should still be able to write it off depending on the nature of your work, on your taxes. But still, it's $240, which could be used for groceries. Some people, that's how much they spend on the entire month of groceries. So you just literally took someone's grocery money from them right there. This is what this is pretty much could be considered like. If these tariffs get passed, it could be passed to the U.S. economy consumers. So if we're paying higher tariffs, because remember these importers are paying high tariffs on the fees that they gotta pay, and the countries that are exporting these goods. So think about a piece of apple that is purchased from China. Not that it would actually make it in the U.S. Possibly it is. A piece of apple is being sold to a U.S. vendor, for example, exported from China, because these tariff hikes are increasing. Let's say it's at 50% higher than what it is now. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to increase the price because I'm not taking that cost. You're taking that cost. So they're going to pass it on to the vendor. And what do you think the vendor is going to do? I'm not taking that cost. I'm going to pass it to the consumer. So now the consumer is going to pay an extra amount for that same piece of apple just because the cost is getting passed on. What that does in return, it gives the U.S. economy an extra 50% increase per apple. But this can affect so many other things. You got EVs, electronic services that are also being utilized elsewhere, imported from other countries into the US, which now has to pay higher fees. Now, I don't know the full details on all the things. There might be exceptions that he does provide inside of this. So tariffs don't just happen to everything across the board. It could be a potential mix of services, goods, as well as different trades that and activities that are happening between the U.S. government and other international entities. Unleashing American energy. This is one of those things that can potentially help with the tariffs. Like if the tariffs are being higher elsewhere, but we're able to produce certain things here, of course it makes sense that we're growing the economy within the U.S. economy. If we're able to produce our own stuff, then there's no need for us to get it elsewhere. What that does is it keeps our spending circulating within the U.S. economy. So this, I think, is a good thing. However, I don't know what this impacts because that requires drilling. If we have to dig further into the ground for certain minerals, for certain things that we possibly cannot do. There are countries that you're not going to find minerals here and you're going to find it elsewhere much cheaper versus us doing it here. Because remember, labor costs here is, I feel, higher than anywhere else. So we're going to charge more for that labor. But I guess if it's circulating within the economy, it doesn't really matter. It helps boost everybody, the minimum wage, so it keeps us going further. Realigning the United States Refuge Admissions Program. Admit only those refugees who can fully and appropriately assimilate into the United States, and to ensure that the United States preserves taxpayer resources for its citizens. This one is a sensitive one because if you're coming here to work, I see this as being a great positive. But if you're an elderly, your family's working here and they have to take care of you and you have to come here, I do think this can create some type of issues right there. Because as a taxpayer, if I'm paying taxes to the government and I have a family member that is my immediate family, not a distant family, my immediate family that I'm taking care of constantly, I should be able to reap the benefits of me paying the tax, paying dollars back to them some way, somehow. New York State and New Jersey, they're pretty infamous for doing this. if you are an elderly that came from another country and you come here, you get all these benefits all of a sudden. All you have to do is become a U.S. citizen. The minute you have that, you have access to Medicaid, Social Security, even possibly, and some other things. Even if you didn't spend a day working here, that's a bit unfair, and I do think that it could create a mixed reaction. Part of it is fair, part of it unfair in some use cases. I think as long as you have a good balance, because as a taxpayer, if I am taking care of someone, sending them money, I should have a right to be able to do that. But if the U.S. government can somehow regulate it so that way it's much more balanced, I think it's okay. So I don't think that this should completely go away where you just completely ban, hey, if you didn't pay any tax dollars here, then you should never be qualified for any of these programs, even though your immediate family members have been working here paying all these taxes. I do think they should be able to reap some of the benefits on that. Protecting the meaning value of American citizenship. It is the policy of the United States that no department or agency of the United States government shall issue documents recognizing United States citizen or accept documents issued by state, local, or other governments or authorities. I think what this applies to is if like a child is born here from two parents that just came here visiting. The mother's pregnant and she has the baby here. Naturally, this makes the baby an American citizen because it was born on American soil, but the parents are not. This is one of those topics where it's like, what do you do? Yes, the parents clearly are not citizens, but the child obviously is because it was born on this land. He or she should be considered an American citizen. This requires a much bigger debate for us to really understand all the different use cases of what rules could be set up on this and where the exceptions could be made. Putting people over fish, stopping radical environmentalism to provide water to Southern California. When I heard this, I was like, this is stupid. Like, to preserve fish life, you're stopping water from coming to people. So what's more important, the fish or the people? I understand that without fish, some people cannot eat, and you do need animals to keep circulating the economy. Like, if we got rid of bees, our lives would be at risk. Bees are part of the whole ecosystem to keep us all going. God made everything perfectly balanced. But for you to say you're not providing water to people instead so the fish can live, to me that sounds really stupid. They probably have justifications for that, but it doesn't make sense on the surface. So I'm glad he called this out early and just completely said this is nonsense. And y'all got a lot of people to get water, especially with what California has been going through. Securing the borders. This one I'm not too big on. I don't see the point of securing the borders. People are always going to find a way to come here no matter what. And if you think about it, the people that do find opportunities to come here, they're not always terrorists. They're not always gang leaders. A lot of them are hardworking people. Look at your Uber Eats drivers. Look at your DoorDash drivers and tell me if you think those people, and this is not me being racist or anything, but a lot of them, this is the opportunities that they find and they go work that most of us Americans aren't willing to take. Not that I'm fully American, by the way. I was actually an immigrant at one point, became a citizen. But I'm just saying, I've kind of been there, and I can very much empathize for them because of the fact that they are hardworking people that are trying to do the best they can to provide for themselves as well as their families. So I don't think securing the borders, I don't see how spending money on that is going to really help eliminate some of those problems. When it comes to what might happen with a lot of companies, I do think a lot of companies find an optimistic round of things now. You might start seeing companies hire a bit more. We're just waiting for him to pass orders around like banking regulations, things like that. The minute that happens, it creates a whole domino effect. So if he deregulates the enforcements on some of these banks, now they have more ability to make more money. Now companies are going to be like, oh, I can borrow more money to do more things now. And now they're going to borrow more money, hire more people to boost the economy and get things going. And this is where you might see a resurgence of company stocks going through the roof. Employment rate might be going down, but it can also stir up inflation. And that's what might cause a crash, I feel. So if this happens way too fast, if he does deregulate these banks, but then lending is happening to people that are not really qualified, it will stir up the economy to a point where we're going to see this acceleration of growth happens way too fast, and inflation is going to come on the rise, and eventually you just got to let things naturally do what they're supposed to do to rebalance itself. Just let the market crash. and a lot of companies are just going to fire a lot of people. Unemployment is going to be back on the rise, and the only people that are going to survive are the strong. And this is where we got to embrace ourselves. Don't live paycheck to paycheck. Do what you can to always have emergency funds saved. Believe it or not, if you can put away money inside of retirement, it's considered an emergency fund because you can literally use that for the emergency. Although you got to pay taxes on that retirement withdrawal, it's called a hardship withdrawal, and you are allowed to take from that if those events actually happen. But don't take it willy-nilly, but it's really if a market crash does happen, you have the capacity to be able to do that. Be very careful, and just know that I do think at some point the market has to rebalance. Do I see a 2008 crash happening? No, maybe a 30%, 40% pullback. And this is based on, to me, where I see inflation has cooled off to, and there's a certain amount of cash, trillions of dollars still sitting inside of more high yield savings accounts, and I think it's around $8 trillion right now. So there are opportunities for the markets to kind of rebalance, and I don't see a crash as severe that happened in 2008. And when it comes to lending for homes, the banks are still highly regulated, so they're not just giving money left and right to anybody just like that. I hope you found all of this insightful. Definitely keep your ears on the ground. Take this opportunity, as if you are seeing stocks that you want to invest in, I do think we're going to start seeing simulation of the stock market for the lower end stocks, and the higher stocks, they're most likely going to keep shooting up. So you have to do your own due diligence and invest in the things that you could hold for the long term. But always have a 5-year plan. Don't think about next year or even in 2 years from now. Think about the 5-year. If you could have a return on this, you find value in this in those 5 years, then it's something you should consider purchasing. So peace and love. Like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions for me, drop it in the comments below. I look forward to seeing you next time. Peace. Hustle, 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 step.